Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. It's now time for that one-on-one conversation with the Senate Majority Leader and the Senator for Kericho County, Aaron Cheruiyot. Our conversation will touch on political and governance matters and everything in between. Senator, karibu sana and thank you for your time.
Asante sana.
Watu wa Kericho wako salama?
Glad to be here. Yeah, they're okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now we're having this conversation at a time where so much is happening in the country.
Yeah.
And since you're a ranking leader in Kenya Kwanza, we'd definitely like your take on a raft of issues. Perhaps most recently, because the country seems to be anticipating Raila Odinga's way forward, which he's set to announce this week if his timelines are anything to go by.
Okay.
I'd like to know your take, because Raila Odinga met with President William Ruto in Mombasa last week, Monday, after the AUC race. Yesterday, there are reports that Raila Odinga met with former President Uhuru Kenyatta. So what exactly is happening? Kenyans know a picture speaks 1,000 words. So what exactly is happening?
Well, first we can start with Mombasa. When Raila came to see the president in Mombasa, I was there. And their conversation first centered on appreciation for the support that the government of Kenya gave to his candidature in the AUC elections. And of course appreciated now the fact that there was a change in plans. Initially, the idea was to get Raila share his vision and plow in the conversation in Africa and how to move things better at that particular stage. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. So given that happened, then it means there is still work for him that he can do here locally. As a statesman, as somebody who's experienced and leading one of the largest political formations in the country, then there's a need to engage and find if there are issues of convergence. So I believe in the course of discussions, they agreed with the president that Kenya finds itself at a situation where there are certain very heavy situations or turbulence that we've run into as a country, especially given the economic situation that the country finds itself in, and of course the spiral effect. By the way, the long and short of almost every other challenge that you can think about has one way or the other related to the tough economic situation that we find itself on account of the debt distress that this country is in. So of course, what do you do when you find yourself in such a situation? You want all hands on deck, and more importantly, the more experienced and sober hands, which include hands like that of Raila Odinga. So there was a conversation about how to try and build on already established broad-based agenda or government formation, which led to members, very senior, high-ranking members of ODM joining the cabinet. And then that was cascaded further to the legislature as well, where now, for example, in the House that I lead, the Senate, we have members from his party who are chairing key committees on account of trying to just steer the country steady in moments of anxiety such as now. So that is what their conversation centered around. But then the Prime Minister said he needed to consult further and get views from his political base. Remember, at the time of the formation of the broad-based government, it was a top-level decision that was made at the party ranking, because at that time, the former Prime Minister was involved deep in the AUC campaigns. So he didn't get time to move around the country and get to hear the views from people that believe or have supported him over the years. I think that's why he had he's visited parts of the country, Nyanza, Western Kenya. Yesterday he was in the coast. I think I've seen reports that tomorrow he might be in the northeastern, and here in Nairobi. Then he will make up his mind depending on what the citizens and the leaders are telling him.
So to those who say that this is already a predetermined outcome, that it's simply, you know, optics going round.
I will call it an educated guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not ignorant.
Okay, let's talk politics, because there's some who believe that Raila Odinga is President William Ruto's only political lifeline. As a matter of fact, we had a section of the opposition repeat this statement time and time again. Is there any truth to this statement from where you sit?
How, you know, I saw that clip and I really laughed. I don't blame them though. That's, outside Raila Odinga, in the opposition, let's rank him together with the opposition of the country. There is nobody else within that formation that I would say understand or has a rough idea what Kenya looks like. Many of them are just fringe politicians that are in control of certain sections of the country, predominantly led by people from their tribe. But they don't have a rough idea of what is Kenya. You can't ask Kalonzo Musyoka to explain to you situations about this country, because he has spent his political life running between Wote and Machakos.
Come on, he's been around the country in the last...
No.
Yeah.
You see, going around Kenya and making your presence felt, leading a political formation that has people and presence across the country is a very difficult thing. It's not an everyday occurrence. Gachagua is a one-term MP who, on account of the collective support of the Kenya Kwanza brigade, ascended into the high office of the deputy president. While he was trying to acquaint himself with that particular office, appreciate the high calling of being a deputy president, I think he struggled in between with trying to find footing with the base of where he comes from. That's why he has retreated and made up his mind that he no longer believes in anything called Kenya. His attention is on a section of the country that has maybe 4 or 5 counties and thereabouts. So I don't blame them. These are people who have no clue what exactly is this country called Kenya. That's why somebody will easily sit and say, President Ruto now relies on the political support of Raila Odinga alone. Based on what? What findings? Many of these people don't appreciate that even in their traditional basis, that there are people who give significant following to the president, including in say Ukambani, where Kalonzo Musyoka comes from, and this Mount Kenya that Gachagua keeps priding himself about. I can tell you for a fact that we interact with citizens on a daily basis, and even leaders from that particular region who appreciate and know that besides the nuisance value that Gachagua gives to this opposition formation, there's nothing of substance to them. It's not like at the back of the mind, they count him as a credible person that they can front to be president of this country. I don't think even Central Kenya or the people of Mount Kenya will eventually rely on him for political direction. The thing is, it falls in the space of, right now the mood in the country is, we have so many challenges that are going on. Okay. If we find somebody that can elaborate and spice it with some dry jokes there in between, we are good to go with him.
But there must have been something you saw in Rigathi Gachagua.
Yeah.
You're castigating him right now.
Yeah.
That when he was picked as the running mate for President William Ruto before the 2022 general election, we had nothing short of praise and accolades, how he's a mobilizer and whatnot. So,
because, it is based on, until you give a man the office, you can never tell his true character.
Okay.
It was our hope then that he was going to rise to the high office of being a deputy president. But you saw the kind of things that he was doing. Instead of bringing the country together, he'd divide more. On account of so many other things, his inexperience, could have been personal insecurities and so many other things.
Okay.
I can't blame him, and I totally understand where he came from. In fact, if there is anything that I learned out of the Rigathi Gachagua experience in the 2 years that he served as deputy president, then that phrase they normally put in a job application that indicate your years of experience is extremely important.
Okay, he's not here to defend himself. So let us talk about something that touches on the Senate, because a section of senators allied to President William Ruto and those allied to Raila Odinga, I think it was on 19th of February, clashed in the chambers of the Senate over a proposal by allies of President William Ruto to introduce the position of a prime minister. Let's just listen in to some of the sentiments that were shared by ranking members of the Senate as they gave their issues in terms of should Raila Odinga join government, should a position be created such as the prime minister's position in order to accommodate him. Some were questioning why the MPs allied to President William Ruto were speaking for Raila Odinga. Let's just listen in.
Can use him. He has huge, he's an elder statesman, Mr. Speaker, and in full implementation of Nadco, we must make Raila Odinga the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. Even the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the Prime Cabinet Minister, he must, Mr. Speaker, be given that position to assist in expanding, deepening, and widening the broad-based government and stability of this country, Mr. Speaker.
I see here today my colleagues celebrating and talking about how Raila is the greatest man who was. How I wish we listened to what they are saying 3 years ago. How Raila was a mganga, how he was somebody who was completely useless to our political dispensation. Where, by the way, why have you never gotten rid of him? Now, today he's being praised of being the hero worship we wanted. Raila has been a hero worship, yes, but we will expect him to give us the excellence we expect from him. He will join your government, and if he's not going to demand that abductions stop in this republic, that we stop the corruption that is going on in our country, that we actually govern ourselves with responsibility, where we accept that our countries within our region respect us and we respect them.
In fact, as the father of this constitution, it insults Raila greatly if you can stand up and say you are going to amend a constitution just to look for a seat for him. That is not what he fought for. That is not why he fought for this constitution, Honorable Speaker. And the leader of the country today is the one during the campaigns who told us that for a change, we must stop looking for positions for leaders. Let us start with the Mamamboga. Let us start with the Boda Boda person. Let us start with other people, because all this time we have been talking about leaders. I want to say without fear of contradiction that if Baba wants something, he will tell us himself. All these people running around and saying, oh, we will look for this, we will look for that. How do you know? He's not interested. Has he told you he's interested?
Okay. So is Baba interested in the Prime Minister's position? Is that the lengths the Kenya Kwanza government is willing to go in order to accommodate Raila within government?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't think so. That was just a personal opinion of...
it's a house of records, you know.
Yeah. I'm saying it's his personal opinion that he thinks probably that is where he would serve. I think it will be something beyond just an office. You know, when you lead a political formation, you don't have to you don't have to sit in a specific office to perhaps aid and lend your support and experience into shaping and making our country better. So I think it's reducing his personal stature and trying to fit it into something like an office. I don't think that is what this architecture is about. I can tell you without a doubt that even in the length of the conversation that has been had so far, and I can say this because with some depth of knowledge of what is being discussed or has been discussed this far, there's very little about who gets what at a personal level. It's about how to merge, for example, if you read the Azimio manifesto, it had some of the key signature projects that Kenya Kwanza is implementing, like universal health coverage, affordable housing, and so on and so forth. So it will be to share in the ideas of how would you have implemented this given the circumstances that they find themselves, the country find itself in. Remember, at that point, both were just talking and saying, granted the opportunity, this is what I would do. There's now the reality of a country that is in debt distress, that loses 70% of their revenue collections to pay off debt, money that has been consumed, and you're left with 30% to do development, pay counties, handle your recurrent expenditure, and try and grow your economy. So with all that realization then, it's about trying to make things work for the ordinary citizens. There are things, for example, that I know that the ODM base has been passionate about over the years, and the reason why they have kept on voting for Raila. You know, if you go to the coast, for example, they want this land question resolved. Many people don't have title deeds for the lands that they live in. There's this question of land that they feel was irregularly taken from them, absentee landlords, and so on and so forth. You know, the lack of investment in the mining and blue economy that is so present and abundant in the coast area, which they feel if they could get a government of their own, that is an area they would prioritize over other traditional sectors that this country has continued to invest in and benefit certain sections of the country. Okay. If you go to Western Kenya, where we were today, you'd find things like a revival of the sugar subsector is something that they are dear and passionate about. How do you do it? You know, the cotton ginneries that stopped functioning decades ago, how do you bring them back to life so that you have some semblance of economic activity in those particular regions? That is the long and short of what we are discussing by and large between ODM and Kenya Kwanza. So it's simplistic to reduce it about just positions. Where will Raila sit? Okay. I think it's bigger than that, and it's more deeper, you know, trying to bring equity to the country. So there are regions, the ODM bases, there are things that they've been passionate about and had hoped that had they formed government, those things would have been addressed. And this broad-based arrangement, the last few months that they've been in operation, has tried to settle those conversations and point the country in fulfillment of those objectives. And that is what we aim to achieve.
So can it be achieved without Raila Odinga in the matrix? Because President William Ruto is a president of all, including those in the bases of ODM.
Yes.
So for someone wondering, how comes you can't achieve it without Raila?
No. In fact, you're saying exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
That it is not about getting a position for Raila.
Yeah.
It's about the president responding to the needs of ordinary citizens in every part of the country. Remember, what was the main point of departure between, for example, us and the former deputy president? It was his public insistence, and even more so in private, that a government has no business taking development or indulging with those that did not vote for it. His public views, and this is not something that anybody is unaware of, everybody appreciates and they know about it, that we should have only concentrated in certain sections of the country. And when he became insistent about it and tried sabotaging efforts to settle development and ensure that you bring a more cohesive society, then it became untenable to work with him. Therefore, this has been work in progress, but you need a more stronger political base. You know, you need the support of ODM legislators, for example. You need their ideas, you know. You need their support to pass some of these decisions. Otherwise, we fall into the trap of a divided society, which has been the case over the last decades.
Okay, so what's the likelihood of a formal coalition between UDA and ODM?
At this point?
Yeah.
No. I can't call it a coalition.
Okay.
What has been in the works this far is more of a cooperation agreement.
Okay.
You know, a lose-lose arrangement, because it's a political engagement of two formations that have been on both ends, you know, of the political spectrum of the country. You can't quickly just rush and fuse in together at an instance. It takes time. There are things that we have to understand about each other. There are things that we don't see the same way. We hold completely opposite views on those issues. Therefore, since the coming into place of the broad-based formation, government of Kenya, or the Kenya Kwanza government, if I may put it that way, has had to adopt to certain ways of working that traditionally a government that is elected by the political base that put Kenya Kwanza into office wouldn't be doing. You would never see the president in certain sections of the country and taking time to respond to issues and the needs of citizens that particular part of the country. But now that has to be done.
Right.
So you begin first with a drawdown of the things, of the shared values and needs that of the people that needs to be addressed. Then you grow that now into what are some of the things that we don't perhaps read on the same script, and how do you close ranks to ensure that you get it better. So a coalition agreement at this particular time and place, no, not possible.
Okay.
Maybe in the future, but not at this point.
Okay, time will tell. Let's see how it plays out. ODM leader Raila Odinga says he wants the National Dialogue Committee report, the Nadco report, implemented if his party is to continue, is it cooperating with the Kenya Kwanza government?
Yeah.
And that Nadco report proposed significant governance reforms. Just to inform our viewers, the creation of the leader of opposition position and the ratification of the offices of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, among other issues. I'd like a status update. What's the status report of the implementation of NADCO?
We came up with 9 bills
Yes.
In the NADCO process. I was part and parcel of the team that sat in Bomas from the Kenya Kwanza side, and Kalonzo led the team from Azimio. And out of the 9 bills, 4 have already been considered, which include the IBC amendment, and I think there are 2 others on political parties that have already changed houses. By change houses, I mean 1 house is done with them, they're now considering. So 1 has already been assented into law, and there are other 4 that are actually now in the subsequent house after being done with in the house where they were originally presented. So we are at an advanced stage. Many of these bills have been refined, which includes reforms to the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. There was an amendment to the political parties spectrum, I think, with regards to making sure that members respect the ideals of the party. It was something that the Azimio team felt needed to be addressed. There were things to do with reforms to the EACC law and statute. That's part of the laws that we have already considered. So what perhaps excites Kenya more is a 9th bill, which is a constitutional amendment bill. That's what many people refer to each time this NADCO process is referred to, which is what you've just mentioned about the creation of the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Office of the Opposition Leader, and having ministers respond to questions in Parliament and things like that, this agenda question.
Okay.
Both Justice and Legal Affairs Committees of both houses have considered this bill separately and given their verdict. Remember, what we needed these committees to do is to give their views on what are some of the constitutional amendments that they believe, given their legal background, that can be done through the parliamentary route. And what is it that they strongly object and feel the only way you can do those amendments is via a referendum. Then we'd separate and perhaps now agree on which ones do we proceed on and consider in Parliament, those that in their view, something say like the 2/3 gender question, which is something both houses have struggled to fulfill. It's a constitutional provision, but with no mechanism of fulfilling it. And there has always been the need for Parliament to legislate, or either by statute or through a constitutional amendment, on how to fill that constitutional demand on us. So if they were to agree, and I've seen the reports from both houses, that's one of the issues that they agree can be dealt with in the Houses of Parliament, then it's reduced into the bill. There are things that they agree that you could easily dispense of with the House of Parliament. For example, the enshrining of certain funds, the national government, or what it's in colloquial term refers to as the CDF, Senate Oversight Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, Ward Development Fund, that these are things that we could be done with within Parliament. So there are certain things that they agree with our proposal and say, okay, it's fine, these ones you can complete through a parliamentary process. Then there are those where the report varies, or they have left it to the collective wisdom of both houses whether to consider or not to consider. So we are at that particular stage in this point in time, and I'm happy that for the very first time, after such a process, such reports and bills and proposals are normally left to gather dust. But it's clear that there are bills that have been signed already. The IBC amendment bill that has given us this selection panel that is currently, I think, in Naivasha, trying to give us a new IBC, is a product of the NADCO process, has gone through Parliament, has been assented to, and things have moved on. So there are certain gains that we can say came out of the NADCO process. And I agree with the former Prime Minister that it's important for it to give meaning. Let's not forget or lose sight of the fact that the Nadco process was birthed at a time where the two political formations in the country were at loggerheads with each other, including even over the disputed 2022 general elections. And therefore, it will be a mockery, you know, of justice on the people that either perished in the demonstrations and the things that happened if we don't live up to the report and the findings of that particular exercise.
Okay, so for those questioning why, because it was handed over to President William Ruto in November 2023.
Yeah.
Over a year and a couple of months change.
Yeah.
Those questioning why it's taking too long, it's work in progress.
Because,
Simple
you
as
know,
that. Yeah.
legislation is not very easy. Even for this IBC bill, the one that has been assented to,
Okay.
we had to expedite it. Luckily, it was just very small sections that we were amending of an already existing law. Otherwise, lawmaking is never an easy process. So it takes time, but
Okay.
it's in the final stages.
All right, we need to take a short break. The bills need to be paid. But as we come back, we'll take a look at the parliamentary purge, or is it simply reconstitution of the Senate committees? This happened quite recently where the allies of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua were actually pushed out of some of the lucrative committees and given a soft landing, if you may call it that. That and other issues coming up right after this break. Stay with us.